Alright, so I'm back with part 2 of this series with deck building for the top contenders in each category of my tier list, and this time it's time for KAINAN'S Reapers. I'm back at Underworlds DB, Championship, go to Dire Chasm, KAINAN'S Reapers, refresh. So a funny little side note is that three of the four warbands in my tier list top there is actually from Dire Chasm. So yeah, make out of that what you will. So we're gonna start with the search objectives and start with picking cards from the faction specific deck. Yeah, so we have 5 searches here, just like we had in the Elathain Soulraid deck to choose from. First up is Craft a New Order. Is a search for score immediately after activation if you have 5 more Tith counters. This I am dubious about. It's certainly not unscorable. What you want, score it straight away, and you kind of want to use your Tith to make the leader's attacks more accurate. So it's a bit counterintuitive, and you won't score it in the first round if you're not extremely lucky. So it's a pass for me. Next up is Gruesome Certainty. This one I will pick, however, because it's just the only requirement is that you crit with an attack, regardless of range. So it's just like a better headshot from the Thunderix Profiteer. So this one I will add to the list. Next up is Pride of the Emissarian Cast. This is scored immediately after activation if your leader holds an objective in enemy territory. This has obviously been hard nerfed with the new season, with the objective starting face down. And so it takes some setting up or card investment to flip cards that you're not standing on. And I think moving the leader forward might also be a trap. I think the leader is best used as a gatekeeper for your puny fighters, so that the enemy needs to get past your leader and via that also be in his range. So I think going forward with leader might not be the best choice here, so I'm just going to pass for that as well. Next up is Pride of the Thoric Cast. This is scored immediately after an activation if 3 more Mortex are in enemy territory. I mean, if you draw this too late, basically all of your Mortex will be dead, because they are very one-shottable with 1 shield, 2 dodge, 2 wounds. So this is a pass for me as well, and you don't really want to go into enemy territory with the deck I have planned here. So I'm gonna pass for that as well. Next up, and the last of the in-faction searches to choose from here, is Tithmasters, because I mean both Kenta and Kainan can collect Tith. So note that when those fighters are dead, you can't collect Tith anymore. So this is scored immediately after gaining a second or subsequent Tith counter in the same phase. This is really easy to score. You can just as soon as 1 4-wound fighter dies, doesn't need to be your attack action, can be a ping damage or lethal X or whatever. You get 2 Tith immediately, or you kill 2 3-wound fighters. This is very good. So we'll include this one and move over to the faction end phases here. First up is Created for War. This is scored in an end phase if friendly fighters made 4 or more attack actions in the preceding action phase. This is a really strong card for 2 glory as well. Both Kainan, Kenta, and yeah, Nohem is the archer, right? Yeah. So we have ranged on 3 fighters, so pulling off 4 attacks in 1 round is really easy. So yeah, this is a surefire include. Next up is Macabre Splendor. This is a hybrid, scored in end phase if each surviving friendly fighter is inspired. 1 or more friendly fights each have 3 more upgrades. So there are a lot of in-faction cards that have this second wording, but not the first one. So this you can score in either way, and inspiring is pretty easy with this warband. Kill 1 4-wound fighter, 1 3-wound fighter, and you're good to go. So I'll include this one even if it's just 1 glory, because it's so easy to score. Next up is a Nagash's Will. This is scored in an end phase if 3 or more enemy fights out of action. A bit steep. Won't really be scoreable in first phase, and I think end phase cards that are not scoreable in the first phase is basically third end phase card, so I'm not going to include this one. Next up is Pitiless Harvest. You need to kill 2 fights in the same phase. Also a bit steep. I mean, you could probably include this, but I'm gonna pass. Because it's very matchup dependent. If you're meeting Morgoks, you will have a hard time pulling off killing 2 of those orcs. Next up is Ranks Unbroken by Descent. Scores an interface of 3 or more friendly mortals in one group. This is the same reasoning here as I mentioned with the 3 more decks in enemy territory after an activation. If you draw this too late, you won't really have this many more decks left, and it's just 1 glory, so it's a bit risky to take as well. Next up, and the last one here to choose from, is Walking Massgrave. This is scored in an endphase if each surviving friendly fighter has 1 more move and or charge tokens. And with a Mortek Advance special ability, this is extremely easy to score. So this will be included. Alright, so moving over to the ploys. First up is Ceaseless Advance, and this is worded as follows. When you play this, you can discard any number of Tith counters, push 1 friendly Mortek for each Tith counter you discarded, and 1 additional friendly Mortek up to 2 hexes towards the nearest enemy fighter. This is certainly not a bad card, but generally you do want to use your Tith counters for other stuff. I mean, it's certainly up for debate, but I will pass on this card. Making the leader's attack more accurate is my #1 reason to use the Tith, but you may disagree, that's totally fine. Next up is Deathless Warriors. This is basically like a cycle ploy that the Wormsplat has as well. You have to roll a crit to get the effects, and I mean, and you can end an attack action if you roll a crit when you are attacked, so this is a hard pass for me as well. And it only works for Mortek, so it has zero effect on your leader. Next up is Dire Ultimatum. This is -1 dice for enemy attack actions to minimum 1 unless the attack action targets a friendly Kainan. And that effect persists until the end of the round if they don't attack Kainan, so just force your opponent to attack your leader or have really inaccurate attacks, so this is a great card. We'll include it. Next up is Exceptional Efficiency. When you play this card, pick 1 opponent, that opponent picks 1, you gain 2 Tith counters on the next activation. You can re-roll any number of dice in friendly Morteks at attack rolls. This is how cards that let your opponent choose the effect should be designed. I mean, both these effects are really undesirable, and if you don't get the Tith counters, you can re-roll any number that's really strong. This is great. We'll take that one. Next up is Lethal Accuracy. When you play this card, you can discard any number of Tith counters in the next activation, +1 dice to the first attack action made by friendly Mortek, and plus X dice in addition, where X is the number of Tith you discarded. Sure, this can also be included if you're not planning on using the leader much, but I would rather use the leader to basically one-shot stuff, so I'll pass on this one as well. Just take note that you can't use the Tith counter discarding on your leader's scything attack. You can only use it for his regular attack, so just something to take note of. Next up is Methodical Assault. Sorry, it's a reaction placed after friendly Mortek's failed attack action. You pick 1 opponent, so basically you pick your opponent, and your opponent gets to choose either you get 2 Tith or you can make that attack again. So it's basically like the same strength as the other card had, exceptional efficiency, so really good. Either you get your second Tith and then you can score Tith Master out of that, or you get to make the attack again, so pretty strong effect. Never Falter is a great card, +1 move to all friendly Morteks is you really need to include, because yeah, the move is really one thing that's bad with this warband. The only caveat here that you need to have Kenta alive to do this, because he is the one commanding the move basically. So be a bit careful with Kenta if you plan on using this card. Next up is also exclusive to Kenta. It's called Never Sleep. You can play this card. Discard 2 Tith counters, reduce a friendly Mortek adjacent to 1 or more friendly Morteks at +1 defense. So you need to discard 2 Tith to gain extra defense on the Morteks adjacent to other Morteks. That's a bit situational and I won't include it. Next up is Never Yield. Each time friendly Morteks dealt damage, you can discard 1 Tith counter. If you do, reduce the damage by 1. I'll pass on that as well. Most of the time people don't really have a problem with one-shotting Morteks, because even if you reduce the damage, doing 3 damage to a Mortek is probably not that hard. So yeah, pass on that as well. And there's actually a spell here which I will not take either. It's 1 lightning only, and since the leader only is a level 1 wizard, having the possibility to not get any effect out of a ploy, basically, I don't think it's worth it, and you only do 1 damage. Basically, no, it's worded as follows actually. Choose 1 enemy fighter within 3 hex of the cost, so that player picks 1. You gain 1 tith counter, or each time a friendly fighter is taken out of action, deal 1 damage to the chosen fighter. So you can basically work an opponent down each time you are taking out of action, but I don't think it's that strong of an effect. You need to get it really early to get any mileage out of it. And you also have a chance to not cast it, so pass for me. Let's move over to the upgrades. First up is Artificer's Blade, and it gives cleave for range 1 and 2. I don't think it's that great. Cleave is certainly not bad, but you can just include Cherry Claws and get cleave for range 1 and 2 as well, plus range 3 for the archer, since he's a hunter. So just take that instead if you plan on getting cleave. Next up is Aura of Shaiish. It's -1 dice from adjacent enemy fighters. Attack actions to minimum 1. Pretty strong effect. It's only adjacent, but still I think it's not bad. Discipline Charge. Reroll any number of dice and charge actions for a... It's restricted to Mortex though, but still strong to get a reroll for every dice. Next up is a really strong card. It's for Kenta, Kaoru, Gnome or Senna. It's +1 dice and +1 damage to range 1 and 2 netherite attacks. Really good. I'll take that as well. And next up is Hatred for a Living. You can reroll 1 attack dice and fighter's attack roll. And this is also for the leader. And you can use this, you can dump this card to reduce damage, basically, just like the Magmal Draught for Thunderix Profiteer. So it has 2 strong effects, so let's include that one as well. Horrifying Soul Traps is a really weird reaction upgrade that lets you choose an enemy fighter when you kill someone and push them. That's a pretty weird effect, and it's only for the leader as well, so pass on that one. Next up is Tith Stone. It's for Kenta. Reaction during a friendly Mortex range 1, range 2 attack actions. Before the attack roll, discard 1 Tith counter if you do 1+1 dice with that attack action until that attack has been resolved. Yeah, I guess that's decent, but it's only for Kenta. And as I said before, I'm planning to use the Tith for the leader here, not the Mortex. So I'm gonna pass for that as well. I'm generally not a fan for upgrades bound to specific fighters if it's not the leader, because you just only risk having dead cards, and I don't really like that. Next up is one of the strongest cards in the game actually, Unnerving Synchrony, and I will include that one. After an adjacent friendly Mortex attack action other than a silent attack, this fighter makes an attack action. And yeah, you can just double attack, especially on if you put it on Kenta and he's like adjacent to another fighter, adjacent to an enemy, he can do his range 2 attack and follow up the other attack, and kind of just one activation shot, I guess, an enemy fighter with lots of wounds. So this is really strong. And if you miss, you get another chance, basically. So next up is Unstoppable Juggernaut. 2 strong effects, +1 move, +1 wound. I mean, +1 move isn't that great, but paired with 1+1 move, it's great. It's only for Mortex though, but that's everyone except your leader, so definitely include that one as well. Witchlight Glimmer, this fighter is inspired, it cannot be uninspired, and you can reroll 1 dice in this fight's attack roll. Getting rerolls is strong enough, and free inspire is even better, so 2 strong effects. So lots of upgrades included from the faction deck, actually, and let's go over to the objectives again, and click for Universal and Grand Alliance Death cards and go to the search department here. We already have 2, so we need 4 more searches. Let's see, Arcane Cleansing, that's not gonna happen. Everything to Prove is a surefire include here because you have 3 fights with 2 wounds. So just a great card to include. Fatal Underestimation is a taking out of action card. Fleeting Primacy, sure you can probably score it, but yeah, I'm not gonna include that one because it takes some time setting up now that the objectives start face down. Forbidding Strike, it's 2 glorious search card. You need to kill someone in the first activation, and fighter holding an objective though. No. Futile Hand, blah blah blah. Impending Doom, sure, very good card here because you have 6 fighters, and since you have the Mortic Advance, it's pretty easy to set up. So let's include that one. And then it's a bunch of killing stuff here. You could probably include Martial Mage because leader is a mage, but I mean you can just take Savage Exemplar or Death Champion if you want to take all 3, sure. I'm not gonna though. Orchestrated kill is not impossible as well, obviously. I'm actually gonna be a bit bold here because we have a really strong team on hands here, and I'm gonna pick Perfect Strike because they are really accurate. The Mortex, they basically all hit on hammers, and getting support is super easy. So you need to only roll successes or critical successes and deal exactly the amount of damage necessary to take the target out of action. So that should happen sometime during the game at least, or a couple. So I mean, I'm gonna be a bit bold. Probably not the most optimal pick, optimal pick, but I'm gonna do it anyway, just because. And I'm not gonna take Equal Contest in this deck, just to mix things up. Starvation, Stinging Strike, Successful Hunt, no. Search of Aggression, I'm gonna pass on that one as well. I'm gonna take Unequal Contest actually, because for the same reasons as Perfect Strike, basically, it's really easy to roll only successes with this team, and this doesn't require you taking them out of action. So let's put that one. What do we have? We have 6 searches now. Very good. Let's move over to the... let's start with third end phase, because I think we can actually go for a pure carnage here. We have 6 fighters and they die really easily, but you should also be killing a lot of stuff with super accurate attacks with high damage output. So 7 fighters need to be dead in the third end phase, and that shouldn't be a problem for you here. Okay, so that's the only third end phase we will include. So for end phases, I'm thinking actually something like... We have 2 slots left, right? We have 3 end phases and 1 third end phase. We need 2 more regular end phases cards here. Let's see. I mean, clean kills isn't impossible, but we're gonna pass for that for now. We don't want every deck I build for this series to be exactly the same, so let's go for Hunger for Power. You need a wizard with 2 upgrades. Shouldn't be a problem to put 2 upgrades on Kainan. You're not really gonna use him as a wizard much, but the fact that he is a wizard can really help you. You could take Magical Mark as well, but I think we need to be a bit more bold with our glory tally here. Let's take Underdog, I think, because you should be losing primacy a lot with it in this team. So why not capitalize on it a bit, I guess. We have 2 restricted slots now. And yeah, so let's go over to the Ploys. Let's select the Universal and Grand Alliance cards, and I'm gonna start with Partial Resurrection because we are playing a Death Faction team here. It is a restricted card, but it's still very strong, so let's include that one. Alright, so how many Ploys do we need? We need 5 Ploys. One of the best Ploys for this team is Eternal Chase, to bump up your movement to 4. So then you have 2 chances of bumping up your movement to 4. 1 via Eternal Chase and 1 via Never Falter, and that's pretty good. I'm also going to include a Hypnotic Buzz here, because that's just very, very good to include. And I am also going to include Center of Attention here, since you have but you have 2 fights with 2 range that are pretty strong. So Center of Attention can really put you in a position to do some damage without charging and stuff like that. The last 2 slots I will fill up with something capitalizing on the fact that you get supports a lot, Swarming Strike and Strength of the Swarm. So on second thought, I will actually dump the Perfect Strike. I think it might be a bit of a brick here, so let's go for Orchestrated Kill, since I'm now also including stuff that makes me capitalize on that. Swarming Strike makes me count as 1 extra supporting fighter for an attack, and Strength of the Swarm +1 dice for attack with support, and +1 damage if I have 2 supports. So yeah, so I think that looks pretty good. 16 total glory, and that's roughly a sweet spot for me, I think. I mean, if you have a super tweaked deck, you could probably be more greedy, but for something quick and fast like this, I think that's probably a good spot to aim for. Okay, so let's go over to the upgrades and fill up those spaces. I'm just gonna check for the undead faction here first. Is there actually anything good here? This is just a weird action. This is cleave and possibly a snare if I am an assassin. That's not really that great. After an attack action, this fighter was a target and it's in a cover hex. Heal 1. No. I mean, could probably use that on my leader, but vital spear. No. Let's unclick the Death Alliance cards and go for universal cards here. I think, Glory Seeker is always a good pick. So let's include that one. I think also Soundless Step is a great pick here, since you have the range to dance around the battlefield and get attacks off. So we need one more card here. Why not put some extra damage? We can certainly use it. So Great Strength will go in, and that is the end of this deck. So, summing it up. For searches, Gruesome Certainty, scored when you crit and attacks. Tith Master, when you get your second Tith in a round. Everything to prove when the opponent gets primacy. Impending Doom, when 2 friendly fights are adjacent to 1 or more enemy fighters. Orchestrated Kill, when you kill someone with support, which we have a couple of cards to help us with, as well as the Mordek Advance innate ability for the Warband. Unequal Contest, when you have only successes in attack rolls for a successful attack, and that should also be pretty easy to score. Created for War, make 4 attacks in a round. Macabre Splendor, each surviving fighter is inspired, or one surviving fighter will have 3 upgrades. It should be pretty easy. Walking Mass Grave, everyone moves. Hunger for Power, Kainan gets 2 upgrades. Underdog, your opponent has primacy. Might not score, but probably will score in some of the rounds. Pure Carnage, 7 dead fighters at the end of the game. That should also be scoreable. Gambits, Dire Ultimatum, if you don't hit Kainan, -1 dice. Separate Efficiency, rerolls, or you get Tiths. Methodical Attacker is also a remake an attack if you don't get 2 Tith. Never Falter, +1 move. Eternal Chase is also basically +1 move. It's a 4 move for every fighter on the board and can't be modified. Push an enemy with Hypnotic Buzz. Strength or Swarm, capitalize on your support. Swarming Strike, get extra support. Center of Attention is a push, and Partial Resurrection you can get back any fighter except your leader with, as long as your leader is alive. But they will only be resurrected with 1 wound. It's a bit of a risky card, but it can certainly be very strong in the right circumstance. Aura of Shaiish, -1 dice, Soundless Step, push after activation, Glory Seeker +1 damage versus 4 wound fighters, 4 or more wound fighters. With any range, Great Strength, +1 damage obviously, Discipline Charge, we roll any number when charging. Empowered Nanorite, +1 damage, +1 dice, Hatred of Living is a reroll for range 1 and 2, and you can dump the card to reduce damage by 1, it's only for the leader. Unnerving Synchrony, attack when an adjacent friendly fighter attacks, very strong card. Unstoppable Juggernaut, also a very good card, +1 move, +1 wound for Mortex. Witch Light Glimmer, reroll 1 dice in attack rolls, strong effect in and of itself, plus you get free Inspire if you're not already. So I think this deck is pretty strong and should be fairly competitive, so I'll just save this one here. KAINAN'S Reapers tier list deck, and I will upload it and put it in the description below. So if you enjoy this video, so stay tuned for the top picks for the 4 fighter warbands and the 3 fighter warbands coming up next. So feel free to like, comment and subscribe, and see you soon. Bye.